as a preliminary matter, this is Carol Thomas, Chair this year of the Needham Board of Library Trustees. I'd like to confirm that everyone, all the members are, and persons anticipated on the agenda are here. And I do believe you are all here. I see Anna, I see Rick, I see Tom, I see Rob, I see Jay, and I see Kate, and I see Dave. So, and Jeff is here, and I actually see Danielle as well, I believe. So I think we're good. And Anne is, McFate is joining us with audio
I'm here.
only. Dimitri is here visually as well.
Yep.
And I think that's everybody that's joining us as a participant. Let's see. I need to read my little script. It's 7:03 on Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. This is an open meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees. This meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth resulting from the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will allow public comment by means of the chat function, as I'll explain in a moment. For this meeting, the Needham Board of Library Trustees is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join in. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all participants are participating by video conference other than Anne McFate, who is audio only. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. This meeting, there were no prepared materials except a progress report by Rob Pettit on the library's technology goals sent to trustees this morning to be discussed under agenda item number 9, old business. This report has not been posted for the public due to its recent circulation. However, the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Before we turn to the first item on our agenda, let's cover a little ground, some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite members by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. To the extent practicable, we will attempt to keep the meeting style somewhat informal, as is our practice when we meet in person. Nonetheless, as in our prior Zoom meetings, 2 rules do need to be observed. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. And please speak, remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Any response, please wait until I recognize you to yield the floor to you so that we don't talk over each other. Regarding public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. Any member of the public signed into the meeting as an attendee may submit written comment or questions via the chat box after identifying him or herself. The host of the meeting and the assistant library director will monitor the chat inbox and alert me to submissions there. The chat submissions will be recorded and become part of the official record of the meeting. Each vote taken in this meeting excuse me, will be conducted by roll call vote. I now ask for a motion to automatically continue this meeting to August 11th, 2020 at 7 p.m. with the same Zoom number, ID number, should any technical difficulty arise that keeps us from continuing. Could I have that motion?
So moved. Rick Hart.
Thank you, Rick. Second?
I second Anna Geraldo-Kerr.
Thank you, Anna. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Jay, Kate, Tom? Yes. Okay, I see you.
I'll wave my hand.
I see
I
that.
can't unmute. Can you unmute me or something?
I can hear you. I can hear you, Tom. So you must be unmuted. Okay. Who do we have here? Kay?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
We already did you, Rick, right? And myself. I think we're gone all round. So it's unanimous. So this meeting, which was called to order at 7:03, we are going to go pretty much straight to the presentation by Kate and Dave, which we really appreciate your coming. But first, I would just like to have a moment of silence and in memory and recognition of the loss, the huge loss of Greg Shesko recently. Thank you. We do not have the minutes, so we will proceed directly to item 3 on the agenda. Kate Fitzpatrick, Town Manager, and Dave Davison, Assistant Town Manager and Finance Director. Rob Pettit is going to be our sort of lead the discussion with you. So I am going to mute myself for the moment, and all but everyone except Rob and Kate and Dave perhaps could do the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. And Kate and Dave, would you like to give us a quick update first? We had a few sort of issues that we thought we could go over, much like what we did last year, but I wasn't sure if you had a few things that you wanted to highlight before we do that.
So I would be happy to start. Usually I give the trustees sort of a rundown of what's happening in town. What's happening in town now is almost all related to COVID-19, as you well know. We are continuing progress on our police and fire stations, so that is something other than the pandemic that our staff have been focusing on. But just as a quick update, we opened our EOC the first week of March, into the second week of March, and staffed that until essentially Memorial Day, and then we've been virtual ever since. We've been through an awful lot, all of us together, in terms of trying to keep our operations running. Many of our buildings opened to the public on June 1st, with the exception of, in a variety of ways, in Town Hall and PSAB there by appointment only, and as well as at the Rosemary Complex. It's busy over at Rosemary right now because we are trying to have some semblance of a summer for the residents. So there'll be 4 weeks of camp programming for young kids and 4 weeks of pool, family, and lap swim to the extent that we're able to do that. We really got the guidance to be able to do that very late, and they've really been working around the clock to try to get that open for residents for the summer. So I'm sure if you go by the library, which I did today, you'll see them working away. The Center at the Heights is closed also for a bit longer, and the Center at the Heights staff are providing an amazing amount of direct service for our seniors, including a lot of meal delivery, technology assistance, programming, particularly exercise and groups so people can have socialization. And as you well know, the library, we're so grateful to see the curbside pickup available, but it also really a wonderful number of programs that people can access online. I particularly love that, we'll pick out your books for you for the kids program. And I did tell another audience this, but I really wanted to highlight to the trustees that I was over at the library picking up my curbside books like the first week, and a young person, maybe 14, 15, walking, was sort of standing around looking forlornly, wondering when he could get into the library. And it really struck me that there's so many different people who rely on the library for so many different things. And we just can't wait until we can open up for that socialization for everybody when the time is right. So we appreciate the work that the staff has put into trying to get books and other materials in the hands of customers, but also the online work that they've been doing. Usually a lot of your questions involve finance, so I don't know if you want Dave to kick that off, and we're here to listen to you and to respond to any questions that you have.
Yeah, that would be great. An update on finance would be really helpful. We know this is going to have a huge impact on town finances, so any information that Dave could provide would be much appreciated.
Well, thank you, and I always enjoy meeting with you every year in July. This is a little different. There is not much that is different than that which we explained to town meeting back in June, on June 8th. We made adjustments to our revenue estimates prior to the town meeting on June 8th. One of the caveats that we had going into town meeting is if there was something extraordinary that happens with the Commonwealth relative to state aid to the town of Needham. There were assumptions that we made about the reduction in state aid, but with the state budget not yet passed, and certainly the state won't take action until after the due date for filing your calendar year 2019 tax returns tomorrow, July 15th. A reminder to everybody that anybody who owes, tomorrow's the day. So we suspect by the end of the month we should get a sense from the Commonwealth how they see their revenue picture and what assumptions they're going to be building into their revenue estimates for fiscal 2021. And we anticipate being able to update the boards this September, leading into the special town meeting that will be held in October. I'll certainly answer questions that you may have tonight.
Dave, do you get a feeling about just going forward, not necessarily in the next couple of months, but going forward, what the appetite is for capital improvements, for example, and we'll go into this in the technology report later, but a lot of the computers at the library will need replacement in the near future, maybe not immediately, but there's going to be some hardware that needs replacement. Do you expect that there will be that capital budget for these sort of normal recurring capital expenditures?
I anticipate that we will have that cash capital article next spring, May of 2021. But any capital that may be taken up in the fall will be that which needs to be addressed promptly and was already on the docket for consideration.
Okay, that's good to know. And I, as far as I'm aware, these don't require immediate replacement, but we're just thinking a little bit ahead, and I'm sure there are other CapEx items that we should be thinking about as well for the spring.
Excuse me, Rob.
Yep.
What capital did we pass at the outdoor town meeting? Was that computers or what?
At the annual town meeting held on June 8th, there were a number of capital items that were approved for the coming year. We saw that the items needed to be addressed. There were a couple of items associated with the library furniture and the study that were drawn.
But another one was passed, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And that was technology, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
And it has to do with whether there's a need to reconsider what our needs are. You know, computers are wonderful, but they need people inside the library to use them. And I'm not sure if realistically there are other expenses that we may want to be thinking about for the next hypothetically 6 months, and who knows how much longer, when really it's going to be remote services as compared to hands-on. I'm not sure to what extent we should be, you know, the same financial needs or the same equipment needs, you know, that we would have asked for back in February. Are they necessarily the same as would be the wisest way to use our money at this point?
Could I jump in here? I believe that all the requests will be considered by the trustees before they're resubmitted for the next fiscal, for next spring. So I agree with you. There could be changes, but I think that we'll need to consider them as a board when we're focused on that particular thing. You may be right. It might be different, although I think the next computers to be replaced are staff computers, which may need it. They're not the public computers, if I recall correctly. So,
If I can add one brief
Rob?
statement to that. Sorry.
Excuse me.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Carol.
Your turn, Dimitri.
Okay.
Go ahead.
To your point, Jay, we have been talking about being able to provide more access to the residents, and Danielle and I, our head of IT, have been discussing getting more Chromebooks and packaging them with Wi-Fi hotspots. And, you know, so we haven't had a chance to talk at our meetings or, you know, with Ann right now. So I mean, it's being discussed, and we're certainly aware of that in the coming months, we may need more, or be able to have the ability to provide more immediate access to residents that don't have a computer at home, rather than having them be able to come into the library. So that's all, you know, I didn't want to interrupt, but that's, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get back to you, Rob,
Sure.
to continue.
Yeah, I can go through the list. So last year we went through a list of some issues and concerns that we have at the library, and we thought we'd do something similar this year. And also just a huge thanks to Kate and Dave and everybody that you work with. It's been very, very crazy for you in the past few months. A lot of the things that we talked about last year are just not applicable right now, given the uncertainty that the pandemic has created. But there are a few things that it's also kind of highlighted more immediate needs, so we thought we'd go over those. Before I get into them, we also wanted to highlight all of the creative initiatives that the staff has undertaken. I think everybody's been really, really impressed with the success of the curbside pickup. I know most of you have taken advantage of that. The numbers on that have been just fantastic. And it's a really effective way to continue the library's core function while people can't go into the building. So we've been really, really happy with that. There's also been a much improved and much expanded social media presence, as many of you have also seen on Facebook, Instagram, and the other social media accounts that the library has. And that, combined with the website, are really the main point of contact with the library right now. So those have gone from being sort of an ancillary communication method to the primary one right now. And the staff has really been stepping up in getting the word out about the electronic resources that we have, the programming that we have, and how to use curbside pickup. So I think everybody's been really appreciative of all of the efforts that the staff have been taking on that front. One concern that we've had is the decrease in hours and corresponding decrease in pay that a lot of part-time staff have had. And I know that we've expanded our curbside hours, which has partially ameliorated that impact, but nonetheless, there are quite a few part-time staff who are getting quite a bit less than what they used to. Do you have a sense on when the town might start getting people back to normal pay practices? I know that for a while people were getting paid sort of based on what their normal hours would have been, and it had been reduced to the actual hours. Is it going to stay like that for the immediate future?
Staff, when they're working, or part-time staff, if they're working, they are being paid at their rates of pay.
Yeah.
The community with the great uncertainty, we're not in the position to be paying people not to work. And we were able to do that for fiscal 2020 and did do that. But starting with this fiscal year, we don't have the same flexibility. It's going to really be based upon how how we're able to reopen and go back to normal for being able to provide services within the library itself. And that's really going to dictate into decisions that the trustees and the director make in terms of what level of service can be provided. So those are the factors that are going to impact that. But I don't foresee a change in the operations for until the fall, the earliest.
Could I add to that, Rob, that with the change in the hours for curbside, we were able to increase the number of part-time staff in the library, and we do have a large facility, and our health folks are willing to look at any proposals. So every step that the library staff takes to maybe add on something that could be done by part-time staff in the library, we do have more opportunity than in other places because of the size of the facility, but a lot of the work is sort of gathered in one place. So it has to be careful thought to it. But for instance, we've repurposed spaces in town hall to accommodate more people, and to the extent that more people are needed in the library, we can be accommodating to try to work those plans out.
Okay, and I know I've been in contact with Dimitri, and I know that the numbers have been going up thanks to those expanded hours. And I think Dimitri mentioned it was about 80 to 90% of the sort of the core part-time staff that are able to get in now.
Yeah. I mean, the few, I'd say like maybe half the library pages we haven't been able to bring back fully. Maybe a third of them, I would say. And Ann, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say 80%. I could say the part-time staff, I think we brought them back as much as we can. And as Kate said, the more we start to expand things, the more we'll be able to bring more people in.
Yeah.
I'll get my 2 cents worth in here on the telephone. We're
Sure.
using our budget up to the limit because curbside pickup
Could you
is a
introduce
very...
yourself? Please introduce yourself by name. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, sorry. I'm Ann McFate, the library director. I'm on the telephone. I just want to tell you that curbside delivery is a very labor-intensive movement. And so we are using people right up to the limit of the amount of money we have. It's just that we are not able to configure the way we used to, where we had staff coming in the morning and then more part-times, different ones in the afternoon. For safety's sake, the people who work part-time are working for a full day. I think it's been working out very well. There are very few people who are not working. And like Dimitri said, there's a few pages that haven't come back, but most of the, I don't want to say adult and sound like I'm downplaying what the pages do, but there are people who are coming in here to work not every day, but maybe once or twice a week. They may not be quite getting what they were receiving in pay before, but pretty close to it.
Okay, that's good to know. And oh, Danielle, did you have something?
Here we go. I just wanted to add, I was doing the statistics for the website, and ever since curbside has sounded off, our website hits have gone up about 20,000. So these statistics are amazing. People are interested, they're loving this curbside, and I just wanted to put it out there so everyone is aware just how much curbside is getting attention, I think, in the town. It's really been sensational.
Yep. And the word has gotten out there, I think, really effectively. And also the word got out about the recent cleaning, and I think that was very transparent and people appreciated it. So the next item, and very quickly, I'll go back to the part-time staff thing. One of the big reasons that we care about that is retention. Obviously, when things do go back to normal, we want to be able to have people come back and be able to get back to full staffing as soon as possible. So that's why that is on our radar. The next item, and this is something that we haven't discussed as a full body yet, but we just wanted to bring it up and kind of bounce the idea off of you. But as far as I'm aware, and there could be a document internally, but I'm not aware of sort of a formal pandemic or health emergency policy for the library. Obviously, that's something that would be subordinate to the Board of Health and its regulations, but in speaking with other trustees, we think that it might be a good idea to consider having a single document that sort of codifies the practices that we've been taking so far in terms of cleaning the facility, in terms of providing curbside pickup, and in terms of staffing. And I don't know, Ann and Dimitri, is there anything, are those sort of being evolving right now, or is there an actual document that's being used?
So I can defer to Ann afterwards, but we're just really going by the recommendations from the Department of Public Health.
Yeah.
Kate had asked us at one point to develop documents. Ann has developed a plan. We're pretty much adhering to that plan for the most part in this phase.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we are with that. I mean, we're implementing what we had developed. It wasn't a formally codified document. It was just something that I think Ann submitted to Kate at the beginning of all this. And Ann, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the case, right? We have a document of that sort.
We do, and excuse me, this is Ann again. The document was also sent to the Board of Health for approval too.
Okay. And our thought was that, we know that it's evolving quickly and that circumstances change, but perhaps eventually once we have a better grasp of how this is all going to work going forward, it might make sense just to have a single document, for example, saying when things do move to curbside, here are the guidelines for how curbside works based on what we've done so far and what's worked out for us. So that's just something to consider going forward, given there is a realistic possibility that even after reopening, there could be periodic shutdowns after that. We'd want to have a plan so that things can be implemented quickly and in an orderly fashion.
Can I ask in connection with that, would the Massachusetts Library Association have put together anything that might be shared among all the different libraries? I'm not sure as any reference materials that they might provide.
They put out a number of guidelines, the Mass Library System, Mass Library Association, but again, it's all dependent on the local authority.
Yeah.
So, in this state, I don't know, but I think I read that a couple I think on this, I saw Pepperell is partially open. They've increased their capacity. They're going to from 25% to 50%. So that means people could be in there 4 hours instead of 2 hours. So, but I haven't heard of a lot of, so it's dependent because the town of Pepperell is allowing that. So, or suggesting that, their Department of Health. So to answer your question, there are some documents, but again, it's each town and city is dependent, in working with their own local health departments and administration.
I'm going to just jump in here. I do believe that the Mass Board of Library Commissioners has recommended that libraries develop a pandemic policy for themselves, which of course will vary somewhat and of course be subject to local Board of Health regulations. But it is recommended that libraries do have that as part of their sort of toolkit in case this comes up and when it comes up again, because of course it will. So thanks. Rob, I'll mute myself again so you can.
Okay, I think Kay has something.
Yes, I just had a question for Kate and Dave to ask about what the plan is town-wide for eventually having public buildings open to the public, including the library. Is there a timeline set up for that yet, or where are we?
So I would say it really is, we need to work in concert with our public health professionals. We're open for appointment only. That's been going actually pretty well, and there's a steady stream of appointments coming in. I don't see over the summer period a need to open that up because people have generally been willing to call up and they say what they need. That's a very different experience than somebody who wants to either come in and browse or sit. And so I think we're going to wait a little bit longer for guidance. And we meet regularly with our public health folks, but I would say I don't see anything until the fall in terms of opening up for gathering.
All right, thanks.
May I speak? I agree with Kate.
Yeah.
So the fall sounds optimistic to me.
Obviously, it's a concern whenever you've got a place where people are touching the same surfaces and also the same materials. It's tough to control once, if you can go in and pull any book off the shelf, that's a challenge. So one of the next items on our list, and this is something that's come up at a lot of our meetings recently. We talked about it last year, and that is the library website. We've had a year now since the new town-wide website was set up on Civic Plus. We've learned a lot more about it. We've met with Roger McDonald, and we've met with library staff to talk about how we can get more content up onto the website and also make it more usable. And both the library and town staff have, I think, done a great job of getting as much as they can into that framework. There is a lot of content up there, but I think that all of us on the board recognize that for the library portion of the town website, there are some serious deficiencies and serious usability issues. And these are issues that we hear about frequently when we talk to folks in the town. And now that we're in the COVID shutdown, the website is the library's front door. It's something that's really critical to the library's mission. And it's something that I think having a website with minimal usability decreases the library's value to the town, and potentially having more autonomy over how a website is structured would add a lot of value, especially right now when it's the primary source of information for folks looking to access library resources, but also going forward. Before the pandemic started, we have seen an uptick, of course, in website hits, but before that, there had been a steady decline over the past year, actually a fairly significant decline in website hits, and that's something that has concerned all of us. We don't think it was just because people are moving more to social media. Again, we've heard from a lot of folks all over the place that they were having issues accessing content. And just to give you a very quick demonstration, I guess before we do that, our feeling based on our discussion with staff and with Roger is that the Civic Plus framework allows for only a certain amount of customization and only a certain amount of content, and that there are a lot of things that we're kind of MacGyvering on to the library website. We're shoehorning as much as we can in there, but it is a relatively inflexible framework for setting up such a fully functioning website. So what I wanted to do, we've looked at what similar towns are doing around us. We found that there are a few like us where the library uses the town's primary website as its architecture, but probably the best practice and what we've seen most towns doing is having a website set up separately, obviously links to the town website, but having a custom designed website. And I think if you see what the difference is, you'll see it's pretty significant. So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. And this is something we just want to think about both for the immediate future, but also for the further out future as well. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Galen, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Hold on, let me let you do it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you should be able to do it now.
Thank you. Here we go. Yeah, it's just going to take a second here. Thank you for your patience. All right. I'm just going to bring up the library website here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this is what our current town website looks like when it's viewed on my screen. You'll see that there is a very large image at the top that takes up a lot of space. There's a spotlight that we haven't been able to successfully provide really any information in. And then in terms of organization, there's a few menus at the top, kind of randomly, somewhat randomly organized. And then there's a lot of content further below, going down to the calendar. But if you were to come here just without having looked at it before, and let's say that you want to look for the book 1984, the first thing that you're going to look for is the catalog search. And I think that's one of the primary functions of the website. There's a big search window up here. If you type into it, you'll find that this actually goes to the town website. This isn't a library catalog search. If you go back to the web page, you scroll down, looking for some sort of a link here. And if you look really hard, it's in this rectangle right here. And we've tried to get that more prominent. We've tried to figure out a way to have it more user-friendly. And this is just an example, because of the limited architecture of Civic Plus, we have to have our catalog search all the way down here. And it does make the website a little bit less usable. To give you just a quick idea of what a library website can look like, we've gone to the Wellesley Library website, which is created by, I believe it's a firm that specializes in library websites. The moment that you get to it, there's a pop-up with some very helpful information about how you can access resources while the library is shut down for COVID. If we just click through that to see what it typically looks like, there is quite a bit more organization here. The first thing that you see is a search page where you can search either the library website or the catalog. So I think the functionality there is just so much better. You can ask a librarian, and scrolling down, you can highlight the collections. You can even see the movies that people can stream if they are library members. And going down to the very bottom, you can see that the Libby functionality has been added in as well. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, but I just wanted to give you a quick idea of why we think that having an independent website would be something that would add a lot of value to the library, especially when it's sort of the main gateway into the library for patrons. And I guess sort of a follow-up for Kate and Dave, I know in the past that, you know, there's been a strong pressure to keep the library website within the architecture of the town's website, but what sort of flexibility do you think we might have? What conversations should we have, or what dialogue should we be starting to start thinking about having a website that is more functional and provides more value for the town residents?
I would first say that we should actually contact Civic Plus and show them, for instance, the Wellesley website to see if that's functionality that actually can be added, because I'm certain that if it's limited for Needham, it's limited for the thousands of municipalities and library systems that use Civic Plus. So I think that's the first step, to see if we can use the tools that we're already paying for to go that way. If that's not an option, then we're going to have to seek about doing a procurement. I can't speak to how the other communities do it, but we have the procurement laws we must follow. The Commonwealth does not allow communities to split bids. When services are requested, you're supposed to look at the aggregate. And that's what we did a number of years to bring the Civic Plus on board, with the whole intent that what we were always hearing is departments were looking to have the access and be able to manage the content. And that's what Civic Plus does. It allows each department to actually manage the content that's up there, to manage its menus, to update it as frequently or infrequently as the department deems appropriate. But that's those are my initial comments.
Or just,
I would agree with that, Rob. I mean, I'd like to see, we do talk about it every year, but I don't tend to hear anything in the interim. So, you know, we're happy to try to figure out whether, you know, it doesn't make sense to me that the searching the catalog can't be more prominent. So I guess I'd have to agree with you. If that can't be done, then we have to figure something else out. But it would be, I think, very useful to like do what Dave said, is to have an expert look at it with Civic Plus and look at some of the websites that you think are models and see what we could do.
Yep.
Could I ask, Rob, could I just ask Dave to clarify what is the roadblock to actually having the library have a separate website linked to the town's website? Does it really have to do with procurement laws? Because other towns seem to have it done separately. I guess I didn't quite understand the drift of the limitation to do with procurement laws.
Again, I can't speak to other communities. I'm
No, I
speaking to the town of Needham, and the town of Needham follows the laws. When the town procured the services of a website, and we had every department indicate services that they would be seeking when we did the procurement, we have to go out with the procurement contracting with a single website with a content provider. If we were going to open up to have multiple websites, we have to put together a request for proposals and reach out to the vendors out there to see what types of products are available, because we still have an obligation to bring the cost to the lowest cost possible, because it is, in the end, the taxpayers that pay for these services, and that's what comes into play. So as I said, I'm not certain how the other communities do it. Perhaps they did do it as an RFP and brought in multiple vendors.
And that's something where, oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, perhaps public dollars are not being used. Where public dollars are not involved, then the Uniform Procurement Act does not come into play. But not knowing the specifics, it's hard for me to answer that.
And that might be something where having a dialogue with the libraries in these towns, reaching out to Wellesley, to Newton, to see how they've done it might be valuable, both from a procurement standpoint, to get maybe their staff's reactions on how easy it is for staff to update the information, because obviously we wouldn't want to go to the trouble of getting a new website in and have it be a pain to update. But we just wanted to get the conversation started. What we have heard, from what it's worth, from the folks, both the town and the library, is that what they're hearing back from Civic Plus is that there's not a whole lot of customization that can be done for a website like the libraries. And actually, something that I did personally, I was curious. You can search for towns that have Civic Plus as their town website provider, and I just went to a bunch of them randomly from Massachusetts to see what they did for their library websites. And there were a few like us that had the Civic Plus library website. They generally were pretty similar to what we have. We didn't see a whole lot of really improvement over what we had. The majority had independent library websites. So it's just a conversation that we wanted to start having, and the value that it brings, especially right now, but even in the absence of a pandemic, I think it would add a lot of value to the library for everybody in town.
Rob, can I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, so we had Roger McDonald in our June meeting come, and we expressed some of these concerns to him. I'm wondering, when are we expected to hear from him?
I have been in contact with Roger, actually, and with Terry Wilson, and they are going to provide, they've asked some of the questions of Civic Plus. Indeed, there are some things that are fixed that cannot be adjusted. Terry's looking into some other things for us, and she's borrowing Sandy Sincata to help us do some Zoom training with our staff. And Sandy's on vacation to July 15th, and then I'm going to coordinate with her about some staff training for that. So they've been responsive, and I've been in touch with them. So I haven't had a chance to communicate that to everybody since the last meeting, but yeah.
Okay, so there should be something happening within the next month.
Certainly, yeah. With it, some, how much change you'll see, but yeah, there will be something happening in the next month.
Thanks.
Sure.
Tom?
Yes, Dave, now when the request for proposal went out, right? What library, was there a library aspect to it? Request for proposal,
Yes, when we put together,
which Civic Plus responded to.
every department, when we put together the request for proposals, which involved the citizen committee as well, that assisted us, the technology advisory board, in evaluating products, departments indicated what sort of functionality they were seeking, and that was included in the RFP. And those were some of the factors that weighed in terms of the selection. And at the time, and of course it's a number of years now, but at the time, Civic Plus offered the best and the greatest functionality that met the needs of the overall organization of the town of Needham at the best price.
Now, was the school involved in that too?
They were not.
Okay. And why were they? So how is it when the schools went out when the schools went out on their own, or always have been on their own? Did they have to go through a request for proposal?
If they procured the system, my understanding is much more hands-on building of the website by the school IT folks. But yes, they would have had to do a request for proposal process to just did if it had a cost above $10,000. I don't know the specifics to that, but the other thing you must remember is the school committee is the contracting authority for the school department, and the town manager is the contracting authority for the town operations. And the inspector general looks at it per awarding authority. They don't look at it that each board and each department is independent, but each legal entity is how the law is applied.
So we could not put out a separate request for proposal for a library website.
We would do a comprehensive RFP with the focus on the library.
Can I ask, when is the Civic Plus, is that an agreement that ends at some point, at which point you go through the process again?
It's we own the license, and it's an annual renewal, and we can opt to change by going out bid again the software. We purchased the product back in 2007, and over the years we have been upgrading it. The procurement law is a little different for technology because of the length of time it takes to get something up and running. If you have to keep doing a procurement, you would be changing software every 3 years.
I'm not. When does the annual period? When would it start again? And would it be possible to potentially remove the library from the next annual arrangement?
Well, then we're talking about spending. We're splitting off the library, spending their money separately from the rest of the town. But the town manager needs to sign the contract, and in the eyes of the inspector general, that's bid splitting.
Right, so we'd need a new RFP for the library regardless.
Yes, it has to be a formal procurement process, and we would, and clearly, if we're going to go through the exercise of potentially changing a content provider, we would look at the needs of all the other departments and put together yet another comprehensive request for a proposal. The process takes about a year in total between preparing the document, sending it out, getting proposals, testing the various projects. And that's how the process was before. There was hands-on departments sent representatives, hands-on participation in working with the different content applications that were offered at the time.
Dave, could I just, did you say 2007 or 2017?
2007.
Was when we contracted with Civic Plus?
And that's when we did the procurement, and then it's after the contract period. It's an annual license renewal that you pay.
So our old website, so-called, was also Civic Plus? I
I'm
mean,
not understanding.
the new website went up in last July, correct?
Talking about the refresh, Dave, of the.
Oh, the refresh. Yes, that was a company just doing upgrades to the system, working with us, but it's still the same application.
It was the same platform,
Yes,
essentially.
there would be no different than Microsoft Suite. You know, they do upgrades
Yeah.
to their product, but it's still Microsoft.
I didn't realize that we had Civic Plus before. I thought that that was new as of last July. I guess I'm wrong about that.
Yes, Civic Plus
Yeah.
has been the same company since 2007.
And thank you.
Yep.
And I think just as a board and with Ann and Dimitri, this is just something that we'll discuss going forward, but hopefully we can collect some data points and see what our peer libraries are doing. And once we get a better picture of what it costs and how they've gone about that process, maybe we can start that process going and evaluate whether it's worth it. The last item on my list of issues, and this is just a quick one, is space planning. Obviously, this is something that is on the back burner right now, given the pandemic situation. And really, that's the only update to it. We did have a small space planning sort of exploratory study underway. My understanding is that is on pause due to the pandemic. And of course, given sort of the potential for public health regulations going forward, we just aren't sure what the space planning needs are going to be in the immediate future. So that is all on hold as far as I'm aware. And that's everything that I had on my list. Did any of the other trustees have anything else to add in?
I wanted to mention that I really have been quite impressed with the value that Cindy Gonzalez has added as public information officer for the town. That the library had envisioned something similar on library staff, but even without that, she's been quite helpful to the library and serving the whole town. But of course, helping us as part of that. So I really applaud that development of adding that function, that particular position. The only other thing is, as far as going back to the library capital, layout, revisualization, that sort of thing. I agree that we need to rethink when we know what we're going to be dealing with in terms of, say, spacing out furniture going forward. But we will continue, I believe, with the study that we had embarked on, which mostly had to do with the location of a automatic materials handler. I realized that our presentation to the finance committee did not, further that idea this year, but that doesn't really mean that there was nothing positive to be said about it. And I think we'll probably want to go back to that, but we'll see what the study shows once we're able to conduct it, about what would be whether it would be a practical thing to have at our library, just in terms of architecture, among other things. That was it, but I do appreciate your help, Kate and Dave, in guiding us a little bit on how to present that. And I hope there will be a path forward for re-envisioning, particularly the second floor of the library when it's time. And I hope you will continue to facilitate that so that we can put our best foot forward with the town.
And may I just say a very heartfelt thank you to Kate and Dave for navigating these very uncertain waters, and also to our library staff, Ann, and everyone on staff, for each day has been different and trying to constantly be flexible and accommodate and serve the town. I thank you.
Very nice, Kate.
I concur. Couldn't be better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol, I think you may be on mute.
Rob, is there anything you would like to add? And Kate and Dave, anything you would like to add?
I would just say that, you know, the working on the functionality of the website is a clear priority of the trustees, and we're happy to participate in that and look forward to that.
I would echo that, and as well as after the staff and Dimitri get a chance to see what extra things they can do with the website, we'll be interested in looking at some data points and also being able to present to Civic Plus what functionality the library believes is lacking, and see if we can work with the tool that we don't. And if not, I certainly agree. We want it to be able to serve our patrons, and we'll look at what options are if we can't make this work.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks to both you and Carol. I didn't have anything else either.
Okay, well, the meeting will continue on then. You're welcome to stay all evening, Kate and Dave. We welcome your presence, but up to you. No problem if you have.
We'll be heading out. Your administrator can move me off.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Next item on the agenda is the director's report, if there is one. I was unclear, Anne, if you have anything you would like to report other than what has already come out this evening.
I do not have anything further. I do not have a report. I would have been working on it the days that I was told I couldn't be at the library, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. There's been a suggestion that we try to get back to where we used to be, which is that materials that go, materials for the meeting go out to the trustees. And now I think it's an excellent idea to have them go electronically, not later than Friday of the week before, so that trustees do have a chance to take a good look at them. The better prepared we are for a meeting, the better our meetings will be.
So you would prefer electronic? That's fine with me.
Yeah, I think that that's, these days, that's the way to go. And
I would second that.
Okay.
saves a lot of trees.
Saves a lot of gas running around with them too.
Oh, well, that too, of course, that's not necessary. And buildings, moving along, number 5, buildings and grounds, we're going to table because we have no report or materials covering that. Ditto for financial reports and the statistical report. I believe the figures are out there, but they had not been put in form to communicate with the trustees, so we will wait until August for those. So we will move along to new business. Tom, I would recognize you to speak relative to the recent passing of Greg Shesko and his many contributions.
Yes. Yeah. I think I sent everyone a draft copy of a proclamation, and you know, which I re-upped the one I sent to the Board of Selectmen when they honored Greg on upon his retirement, and they used some of it in the thing. But I had it here, and I added a few other things that were in, and I think it. Like one question that was raised was therefore the trustees make this proclamation in memory of Gregory John Shesko for his many contributions to the Needham Free. What are we proclaiming? Well, I guess we're proclaiming our appreciation, I guess. Is that enough? And did anyone have any anything they want to change in it, or grammatical situations or whatever?
I think with regard to that last comment, it might be nice to add something in that last paragraph that's like in thanks and in memory, you know, an appreciation,
Yes.
to somehow reflect that concern, that comment.
So add in memory and appreciation.
In appreciation and in memory of something along those lines.
Okay, I say in memory and appreciation of his many contributions to the Needham Free Public Library.
Okay.
Okay, is that, we can amend it that way? Is that all right?
Tom, there is just a
Do you have
little,
copy? I don't know if everybody,
Excuse me, Tom.
Jeff, you have a copy of it? Oh, yeah.
Tom, I think you need to read the proclamation. as
Oh,
a
okay.
Proposal,
I'll
yes,
do that.
please.
Oh, died out on me here. Whereas Gregory John Shesko moved to Needham in 1989, and he soon became involved in the support of the Needham Free Public Library. Whereas he joined the Friends of the Library and served as its president. He spearheaded the Friends Override campaign, which restored the budget cuts the library had suffered. For this campaign, the Friends received the American Library Association John Cotton Dana Award for Public Relations. He was also the guiding force behind the expansion of the Friends book sales, adding the ongoing and online sales. Through the years, these book sales have generated over $500,000 for library programs and services. Whereas in 1994, he was elected to the Library Board of Trustees. As a trustee, he was a major force in the creation of the present library building, the library. He was the lead in gaining state funding of over $3 million towards a major renovation of the library. As a library member to the PPBC Building Committee, he helped oversee a project that came in on time and under budget. As a trustee, he was also instrumental in the establishment of the Library Foundation of Needham. His family's donation to the LFN provided for the Friends Book Room. Where his library interests were not confined to Needham, he served as president of Mass Friends of Libraries. Governor Deval Patrick recognized his ability and dedication when he appointed him to 2 terms on the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. Therefore, the trustees make this proclamation in memory and appreciation of Gregory John Shesko for his many contributions to the Needham Free Public Library.
I think that's wonderful. I have 3 like very tiny small comments, maybe. I think when you read it at the end, you'll make contributions plural, right? In your draft for as many contributions.
Oh, many, yes, I should have had it.
In the third paragraph, it's the only paragraph without a whereas, and maybe to be consistent, you want to start that paragraph, whereas he was also the guiding force, just to make it like all the others.
Jay, would you want to just?
Well, that whereas I had in there, every whereas is something different. The first one was the Friends, the second one was Trustees, and the third one.
Okay, I just saw that there was one paragraph that didn't start with a whereas.
Okay.
And the thing, it actually is, yes.
Do I have a motion to adopt this resolution as with the changes that have been proposed here tonight?
there is one more change.
Yes.
Contributions to the Needham, TO, there's a preposition missing too.
Yes, there should be.
Okay.
And I think under budget is 2 words.
Oh, yes, it certainly should be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that tinkering, could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
You got those, Jeff?
Tom can provide the written with these corrections to Jeff for the minutes. And who do I have to second? Kay. Kay, you're muted.
Second.
Yes, thank you, Kay. All in favor?
Aye.
Just go down there, Tom.
Aye.
Kay. Kay.
K or J?
Well, I said Kay, I didn't, but she's muted again. Is that a yes, Kay?
Yes.
Thank you. Jay, now let's go to Jay.
Yes.
Yes, Rick?
Aye.
Okay, who did I miss? Myself in favor, Rob in favor.
Aye.
Thank you, Anna. I believe it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We will miss Greg. It's a terrible loss. So next, I would like to recognize Anna to discuss what actions she is. She's keeping track of what actions have been taken in implementation of the trustees' June 9th, 2020 Equity and Inclusion Resolution. I had asked whether she would just present what she's aware of as progress on that score. I think we'll want to make some clarification of our expectations that we make progress each and every meeting. So hopefully there will be something good to report. So Anna, your turn.
Thank you, Carol. As you know, we unanimously approved the resolution on June 9th that reaffirms, the public library's commitment to inclusion and equity. And as such, we had committed to several different steps, some of which involve programming, others some material review of what types of books and other items may have that can support our resolution, and also providing some training with regards of racism and unconscious bias. So it's only been a month, and there have been many, different. We're still, the library is mostly focused on curbside pickups. So having that scenario has not stopped the library, though, and there's been some activity that I'm happy to share with you. This is going to be a preliminary, not informal report, because I don't have specifics as I would like at this point, but it's just to give you an idea. So we have the social media, as you mentioned, that that's been increasing significantly since COVID took over, and we've shifted our attention of the library communications to the web and to social media. So there have been several posts on Instagram, Facebook about different types of books available, different types of, there was a discussion or mention on Juneteenth, which is happened in June 19th, and there were some books suggested for families that wanted to read about that celebration. There's also been some displays and banners suggesting some books online in audio format, in ebook format. So that's on the promotion of books. But there's also been some training that happened, let me see, Anne may remember the date. I think it was late June on it's diversity related training. And also the town of Needham had another event, a workshop, online workshop on unpacking structural racism that several Needham Library staff members attended, and several trustees as well. So there has been this is kind of like an idea, just to give you an idea. Going forward, what might be helpful, since the library has done a great job at keeping metrics, and data points that we were talking about with regards to technology and the website, by the same way, we would like to see some kind of metrics kept on, how many social media posts, how many trainings are we doing, how many programs are we creating to support this resolution, so that we can have an idea of where we are really focusing our attention, and where maybe not focusing as much, so that we can have a balanced approach. So along those lines, there, I drafted something that I'm still working on, kind of like a spreadsheet of sorts, which is similar to the metrics documents that we have for circulation and other, and downloads and so forth. So it will be following a similar format. It's just now it will be focused on any efforts regarding the support of this resolution? Any questions or any ideas? I know I'm being very vague and I just gave you some, a few examples of what's happening, but we hope that going forward, maybe in August or September, we'll have more substantial information that we can start discussing at more length.
Thank you, Anna. I think that that's, it's promising. Clearly some effort has gone into implementation of this, despite what is a very overwhelming situation at the library, trying to manage booming curbside service demands on a limited staff in the building. So I think, we're doing all right. I think we need to do more. Clearly, we will want to do more, and this is just the beginning. And I think that perhaps you and I and Anne and Dimitri can talk about what method is the best way to keep records of these, say you call them metrics, or just a record of what has been done, so that we could see whether we are, continuing to make efforts in support of our own resolution.
One thing I want to add to that is that as you may have noticed, the town itself has started an United Against Racism initiative. That is, there is a public forum coming up July 21st. So there is a concerted effort by the town to start addressing racism in town. So the library can play a critical role, and we're starting to, with the resolution was the first step, to play a critical role in supporting people. People want to get informed, they want to get educated, they want to start talking. We can support the books or the items, movies, all different types of reading materials that they can start that could trigger some dialogue and understanding and education. So we have a role to play, and if we keep track of what we are producing, then we can show historical information. We started with 5 programs and now we have 10 and so forth, and we've announced all these events and so on. So it will also help us and I know there's actually a group of families that is trying to become more educated about this topic. So they are looking to the library for support. So we also can be more visible and create more of an outreach effort that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I agree that can, providing resources is an excellent way that we can work together with the rest of the town to make a successful, really some change as a result of the United Against Racism new, I don't know whether you'd call it a task force or a program, really. But thank you for that, Anna. To be continued. And we will move on now. We are only 6 minutes behind schedule. How about that? So we'll go to old business, strategic plan. Before we have the technology report that Rob has put together, an excellent report, let me just check in about how we're going to go forward. We're going to need to talk about very soon about the next long-range plan and what preparations we need to make. It's going to be difficult, and I think we're going to have to call on our administrators to figure out what's being asked for by the state in terms of long-range plans, when it's hard to do a community study when things aren't normal, demands aren't normal, and what we're able to provide is not normal, our usual normal. So we'll have to talk about that some more, but I hope that Anne and Dimitri can do a little bit of footwork so that they can present something at the August meeting about what they propose for our process for the next plan. Short of that, we still have some sort of updates on different sections of our existing strategic plan. The ones that have not yet been reported on or are, let's see, here's my little cheat sheet. My section, which is the facilities and their staffing. And then there is the one programs and excuse me, community engagement and partnerships. All three of those still need to be reported on, and whether or not we do them singly or we bunch them up so that we can do a completed report this fall, we'll have to see. But in any case, for August, either we will do facility or we will do staffing if Rick is able to prepare a report and is willing to switch horses, so to speak. He was not assigned to that section of the goals. That was Greg's section. He was working with Anna on the community engagement. Rick, you can let me know and we'll work that out as to who is to report in August.
Yeah, I've got to catch up on that section and see where we are
Yeah.
and understand it a little bit better, and then we can talk.
Okay, thank you. So moving along then to the technology report. Rob, again, has a big night. Thank you, Rob, for all of this. I will turn the floor over to you to give your technology report to us.
Okay, thanks, Carol. I owe a lot to Rose, who prepared the technology report last year. If you read that at the time, you'll find that a lot of the responses here are similar because a lot of these goals have either been attained or are in process to a similar extent that they were from last year. And I've spoken in updating this with Danielle, with Dimitri, and with Steph to get a better idea of where things stand right now, and also to get sort of an up-to-minute view on how some of these items are faring during the pandemic. I think just as a general note, the pandemic has really shown us which areas are strong in terms of our technology and our electronic outreach, and which areas are lacking or which needed to evolve rather quickly to keep up with everything. And those will be covered in this report. So if you'd like to follow along, this will generally follow the document that I sent out earlier today. Objective A is to create a plan for instructional programs related to current and emerging technologies used by patrons and staff. Action 1 is to assess the needs of community for technology programs. This is an ongoing goal. Before I get into this, as I'm going through, Danielle, Dimitri, and feel free to interject at any point if you'd like to provide additional detail or correct any aspect of the report. We've determined that this goal has been completed for fiscal year 2020. This involves technology, reference, children's, and technical services. Dimitri serves on the Minuteman Network's Innovation and New Technology Working Group, and I believe, Danielle, do you still serve on that as well?
I was allowed to do 2 terms, and 2 terms is the limit, so now I'm on the technology interest group.
Okay.
And I'll be starting that in the fall.
That's great. So we've got two folks who are very enmeshed in that world and able to reach out to peer libraries to get a better idea of what they're doing. Danielle works with patron-centered departments to respond to new patron needs and requests, and also works with staff. During fiscal year 2020, the library purchased 15 new Chromebook laptops for patron usage. Sorry, Tom, was that something?
What?
Okay. Sorry,
No, I didn't say anything.
thought I heard something. Those Chromebooks are the same model that are used in schools, and I know that we had purchased, I believe, 2 during the previous year. One thing that we discussed was the possibility of using those for staff members during the shutdown for better remote access. Is that something that's been implemented, or are people using their own machines?
I'm actually going to grab one tomorrow and play with it and add stuff to it and see how functional it is and start handing them out.
That's great.
And I just want to add that Danielle and I have been discussing whether we can use those and bundle them with Wi-Fi hotspots for the public. So we're looking into that right now because we already have that part of the equipment. We just need to look into the hotspots and what that would cost, and sort of reach out to some other neighboring libraries that are already doing this and see what they use, what their process is. I know one of the main concerns are, lending out such an expensive piece of equipment. Our main concern is providing access to those patrons that we know as regulars who don't have a computer at home and have probably been struggling during this period of time. And we're hoping that even when we do open up to the public, we're still not going to be able to provide enough access for some of those folks. So Danielle and I are working and researching to see how we can take some equipment that we already have that's been purchased and buy something additional in terms of Wi-Fi hotspots and how it can extend access to the public.
Kate,
yeah.
Kate had mentioned something about Center at the Heights doing some reach out work. Is that something, are they doing anything similar in terms of computers, do you know?
They're doing something similar to that, but we'll have to see. I mean, we have, whatever we do with the Minuteman Library Network, so we'll have to adhere to whatever, loan rules, as they call it, and things like how libraries lend that out. So they are doing something similar. There's a little more informal, so they don't necessarily check out equipment. They know their people. They see them. It's a little different than a library environment where we see some people, we used to see some people every day. Other people would probably come in and say, never been here before. And, we have to consider things like, are we restricting it to residents? Some libraries restricted to town residents. Some libraries, as long as you have a Minuteman card, will allow you to do that. Those are things we'll have to discuss and sort of research and see what we'll end up doing.
Okay. So moving on, additional new hardware during FY 2020 includes a new scanning station, which provides faster scanning than the previous one and less startup time. It can also encrypt documents as they're being scanned. The library is also, I believe, more than halfway through a server upgrade. That's something that Danielle's been working on, and I believe that what's remaining is an update to the group policies. Is that something that's still in process?
Yes.
Okay. The foundation is responsible for the new cell phone charging locker. I say it's new, but it's been there for a little over a year. What we have been hearing is that it's been very popular, very heavily used, and hopefully once folks start coming back, it'll continue to be heavily used going forward. The technology office maintains a variety of hardware and devices, including RAM, toner, and headsets for staff and patrons. So the equipment is plug and play. Staff and public computer troubleshooting is done on a continuous basis. The Friends paid for a 3D printer in a prior year for the children's department and additional thumb drives for reference. In 2019, Paula Dugan researched and drafted, and we adopted a policy to govern the use of that 3D printer by the public. There haven't been any significant databases that have been added to the library's electronic resources during the past fiscal year, although I believe Overdrive, Canopy, and Hoopla subscriptions have all been expanded, partially as a result of the increased usage during the pandemic. As we've discussed previously, the amount of ebooks being purchased has also been ramped up, also again corresponding to a significant uptick in ebook circulation during the pandemic. Library staff have highlighted the library's electronic resources on the social media accounts, and those efforts have been very successful. And I believe it was Danielle who sent me some of the statistics on the electronic resources, and following some of these social media campaigns, we saw very significant upticks in usages. I think one experienced maybe a 10-fold increase. Those social media campaigns have been very effective in getting the word out about library resources. And a couple of them, including Ancestry and Artist Works, have had especially notable growth. Going forward, my understanding is that social media will continue to be used to help get the word out about library resources. It may not be on a regular scheduled basis, but it will be done from time to time. And that's something that I think is really important, and it has been really well received in the community. During FY20, lynda.com, which was added last fiscal year, notified libraries that it would be moving under the LinkedIn umbrella, which would require every person who accesses it to have a separate LinkedIn account. This was a no-go for privacy reasons. In response to that, LinkedIn walked back their policy, or is in the process of walking back their policy for lynda.com. And we decided to renew that subscription so people can continue to get access to the continuing education content on it. While the library is closed during the pandemic, the need to provide the information and resources and programming is greater than ever. And this is something that I've heard about from a couple of folks who are heavy library users. At first, there was difficulty getting a Zoom account for the library within the first couple of months after the pandemic came out. And I feel like there was some demand for that, especially as it related to programming, for regular library programming, for book groups. And I believe it was in May that, thanks to efforts of the Friends, the library got a fully functional Zoom account, which we are using right now, which allowed much greater control over meetings. And that's something that's necessary whenever we have meetings that are open to the public. And my hope is that going forward, we'll continue to use Zoom and expand it for ongoing programming so we can continue this programming even while the physical facility isn't open. I've also noted that there have been a number of Facebook Live events on Facebook, and my girls have enjoyed them, the events that the Children's Department has been putting on. There have been a couple of Frozen appearances, and those are very popular. As we discussed earlier, the library website remains at best a work in progress. Staff, both from the library and from town IT, have worked hard, very hard over the past year to help integrate all of the content into the library website. And as we discussed earlier, we're really shoehorning a lot of functionality into something that was not designed to contain this much information and these many specialized functions. So that's something that we'll continue to point out in the strategic plan, in the updates to it, and hopefully we'll have a new website by the time the next plan comes out. If we don't, I think this would be something to highlight in it. Usage of library computers and other pieces of hardware should be considered in the context, it should say context, of any reopening plan to ensure patron safety and peace of mind. And this might go to the point earlier about sort of getting all of the best practices for the pandemic closure into a single document. One thing that we'll have to consider during the reopening period is how the computers will be treated, whether anybody will be allowed to access them, and if so, if there will be cleaning procedures. Moving on to action number 2, that is to plan and deliver basic and intermediate instruction for current and emerging technologies based on the evaluation done in action number 1. This was something that was slated for completion in FY21, which we're in now. This was actually completed early in the prior fiscal year, but we did include an update here because it's also an ongoing item. Instruction for patrons is completed by reference and children's departments. Information from reference and children's staff and information from colleagues in Minuteman will help to determine what current and emerging technologies will produce the best results. Continuing the trend in past years, adult patrons continue to prefer one-on-one instruction for technology issues as they arise. We haven't seen really any demand for scheduled technology classes. We also don't really have a classroom space at the library that would be suitable for that type of instruction. So that's not something that's been focused on, even though that appears later in the goals.
Rob, can I just ask, I'm assuming this is all pre-going to remote. So if there was an interest in doing those sorts of classes remotely, you might get a different response. I don't know.
That's a good question for Danielle and Dimitri and Ann. Has anybody brought up or asked about having any sort of technology literacy classes since the pandemic, or is it still kind of one-on-one?
It's kind of not to the best of my knowledge. I mean, what this platform has been good for really is, is all the virtual programming from children's and other adult programming. Mm-hmm. From what I've heard from other libraries that have tried it, sometimes the barrier is a little high because if you can't have a laptop and operate Zoom, mm-hmm. you might not be able to benefit from it, Yeah. So a good experiment is actually going to be when we do have Sandy Sakata, Kate Fitzpatrick's assistant, provide us some training through Zoom on doing things on the website. So that'll be interesting to see how we're going to do that. But just to backtrack for a second, one thing I did want to say is regarding the website. Since Roger came to our meeting, he and his team have been much more responsive, reached out to us, and they've been very communicative. And it's actually been interesting for them as well to ask Civic Plus about certain things, which they've been told it's fixed like that. We can't really do that. So I think that's been that's been great that we had Roger come to this meeting. Thank you all for, when he was here, peppering him with questions.
And I think that's something that we're finding the more we dig in is that, it's a fixed framework, probably intentionally to simplify it.
Sure.
But it's it's designed for departments with a lot less content than what we have.
Yep. Yeah.
So continuing on in action number 2, any future physical space plan should consider the role of technology and how it's going to be laid out. For example, if we move away from having primarily desktop computers, if we are loaning out iPads and Chromebooks and things like that, that might affect the way that we set up the technology space going forward. The one-on-one system, as we mentioned, is working out well, and that's continued during the pandemic. I know from speaking with Danielle and with Steph that patrons are interacting with reference staff by phone and by email to answer their technology questions. And also to assist in accessing electronic resources, which again goes to getting the message out and getting folks able to access the resources while they can't come into the building. So the one-on-one model is working well. Assistance is also provided by children's staff. And while the library was open, Danielle has provided guidance regarding hardware questions relating to wireless mice, USB switches, charging cables, and things of that nature. Danielle also provides technology instruction to staff. During fiscal year 2020, she reached out to Cybrarian to potentially implement time management for public computers and printing. And Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that this would allow reference staff to remotely access the desktops on the public computers to assist patrons without physically needing to go over to the computer.
That's correct. Dimitri and I had talked about that, and we had some concern about privacy issues. So I believe we decided not to go forward with that.
Okay, thanks for the update. For training part-timers, that has been helped by the fact that many have their own digital devices and are not afraid to experiment and figure out how they work. Steph and Sarah are on the digital content working group and get updates about new additions to Overdrive and pass along that information to staff. They're also able to share Needham patron issues about Overdrive to the network. So we've got, between Danielle and Dimitri and Sarah and Steph, we've got a lot of interaction with Minuteman on technology issues. Action number 3 is to determine and create a matrix of staff competencies ranging from basic to advanced skill levels. This was a goal for fiscal year 2019. The decision was made with the update last year that this was not a realistic goal, given that the technology for each department is so different. And while this may not be a goal to create sort of a master matrix, I still think it's something that's worth considering, given the importance of technology, and it might be worth having more people who sort of serve as de facto point people for given things, for example, for the website. So as noted here, due to the many applications, each with many versions, plus the complexity of updating the matrix in real time, we decided not to go ahead and create that matrix. Staff has worked to develop some backup coverage and some cross-training. Dimitri and Steph are backup for Danielle's hardware knowledge, and Danielle trains staff about technology. Staff then deal with patrons' questions. Staff in the children's department have taken online courses and several webinars in Scratch, computer coding concepts, and computational thinking, and in teaching code to children. They've also learned how to operate the 3D printer and how to scale and adjust 3D models for the best printing results. As I mentioned, there has been cross-training for the staff. There have been some issues with the community room. There are a large variety of users who use the community room, and a lot of times people will use the hardware themselves. So I believe that that has been an issue with getting everything operated properly and put away properly. Danielle, is that a pretty good summary of that?
I believe so. You also would want to check with Gay Ellen over there, who just unmuted herself.
Yes, I did. I can tell you that it is getting somewhat better with the community room. We are definitely insisting on people coming in for training, and we have had the fixes that we have had to need to. We did have an equipment failure. It came out of warranty, thank goodness. That has been set right again. So everything is currently working. We still have some issues when it comes to electricity coming into the building, AKA every time we take a lightning hit, we sometimes have to go down and do a reset of everything in the room. And that includes going up into the ceiling and doing a reset on that document camera. But it's not something that we can stop happening. We just know it's there and we deal with it.
And at the moment, the community room is serving as our quarantine zone for materials, so.
And I can tell you that that's where it's going to be like that for the rest of the year. I have canceled everything that's going to be scheduled for that room. And I am in conversation with the Friends about their programs for the fall.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Access has been an issue. Staff have access to email and to publicly available websites, but don't have access from their home to the desktop that they have at the library. I believe this has probably been a little bit less of an issue now that a lot of staff, both full-time and part-time, are able to come to the library at least a few days a week. Has there been, for Danielle and Dimitri, has there been any consideration about having that ability in the future, or is that not really realistic given our network?
So I have the ability to remote into the server for network issues, but it is against, I believe, Minuteman policy to allow more access.
Okay.
I mean, as a backup to that, you know, Danielle has been gracious enough so that she has extended herself to staff and say, if there's something on your desktop, you know, I've been at home working from home saying, oh, that's on my hard drive, Danielle will remote in and get it and then get it to us. So that's been good. It's not the most, you know, it's not the most direct system, but it works.
It's a way to safely navigate the security and privacy issues and keep the staff having access. So
without violating
something, I can get it for them.
Yeah.
Without technically violating the network's policy.
Exactly.
Okay. That's good to know. So I will move to objective B. Objective B is to maintain and improve the level of technology supporting accessibility to library materials, resources, and information. Action number 1 is to maintain and review technology plan addressing technology infrastructure, including maintenance, upgrades, Wi-Fi accessibility, and other network capabilities. This is an ongoing goal. This has been completed for fiscal year 2020. Although planned for 2020, the technology plan reassessment has been put on hold until the budgeting trends are better known in the wake of the pandemic, along with patron trends and safe operating procedures. As we discussed earlier with Kate and Dave, we would certainly hope that our computer replacement would continue to be covered in the CapEx budget. It's not, I don't think it's an especially large sum of money, but based on my discussions with Danielle, it sounds like are getting to an older age, and that will be necessary to replace them in the relatively near future.
Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Anne or Dimitri can, but I believe it was approved for staff replacement.
I want to say that's true. Anne, does that ring a bell with you?
This is Ann. Yes, we have money for replacement of staff computers for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Considering we can't let the public in, that's great.
Excellent.
Right.
Now that I should have reflected that in this draft, but that is good to know. As I mentioned earlier, the server migration to Windows 10 is mostly done. This has slowed down after the closure, and the group policies still need to be updated to complete that transition. One of the initiatives that Danielle has brought up was to increase Wi-Fi bandwidth in the library. The goal there would be implemented once patrons are allowed back in the building. The existing network infrastructure, and Danielle and Dimitri, let me know if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it's generally adequate. There was one new switch that was acquired in 2020. And as mentioned earlier, some of the staff computers will be upgraded soon.
Yes.
Okay. Staff had plans to obtain quotes for a more extensive security camera system, and I know that's something that we've discussed at our past meetings. Those discussions have been tabled again, pending the reopening.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay, thanks, Ann.
as for the staff replacement, that is also kind of a work in progress, given as many staff members understandably don't want me near their space.
Right.
So
Presents certain challenges.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, you can have a do-it-yourself approach to upgrading hardware. And going forward, just as a last note, and Dimitri mentioned this earlier and brought this issue or this potential up, some peer libraries have begun lending mobile Wi-Fi hotspots to patrons, and we may want to consider a similar program. For those who haven't used those, a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot, at least the ones that I've used, is something maybe a bit smaller than a hockey puck that you tether to any computer, whether it's a Chromebook that you're using from the library or your own device, and it allows you to get a Wi-Fi signal through a cellular signal. So you can take it anywhere where you get a signal in your cell phone. If you wanted to take it out from the library and go to the town green and sit out there and plug it into your computer, if your computer didn't have a cell signal, that would be a way to use your computer somewhere where you normally wouldn't. So basically it allows patrons who want to have internet access to have that in a space other than the library. So that's something that could be valuable in the future, although it would be a challenge to figure out how to ensure that those don't start disappearing.
And typically, that's something we would bundle with, like, say, a Chromebook or some sort of a device like that, because somebody who would be in need of that also probably doesn't have the technology to connect to the internet. So they need the whole package, so to speak, of the Wi-Fi hotspot and a Chromebook or some sort of a tablet or device to connect to the internet. So
yeah.
That's what we're looking at, what others are doing.
Okay. I'll move on to action number 2 within Objective B. That's to maintain and develop sustainable funding for technology, which needs to remain flexible and adaptable to new and emerging needs, including Minuteman Network membership. This is completed for fiscal year 2020. As we went over earlier, the funding for staff computer replacement has been approved. That would update what I reflected in the draft that I sent around earlier. There are still budgeting challenges on the horizon. I'm sure there will be for the coming fiscal year and the one after it. So we'll have to really prioritize what technology upgrades need to be made during that period. Action 3 is to deliver regularly scheduled classes supporting library resources, including database searching and downloading ebooks. This is an ongoing goal. We've determined that this has not been completed. In past years, Reference tried regularly scheduled classes, but as we mentioned earlier, found that patrons preferred one-on-one sessions. For next steps, we'll continue to provide one-on-one sessions for patrons who have questions, as well as written materials. This outreach has continued during the pandemic. Staff have also expanded social media postings to help direct patrons to the library's electronic resources, and we've seen quite a bit of success with that. Action number 4 is to provide training and assistance of adaptive technologies to improve and enhance experience for hearing and visually impaired patrons and staff. This is an ongoing goal, and we have good progress on this. All public computers have adaptive technology features built into the Windows operating system, including narration and magnification. Public computer screens have icons for the adaptive technology and for paint. The reference desk has a wrist pad that patrons can use There's also a headset available for patrons at the reference desk, allowing visually impaired patrons to listen to internet sites on public computers. This assistive technology is available at the circulation desk as well for use in the community room. For next steps on this goal, as soon as new adaptive technology becomes available, it should be considered. The update for 2020 is that not much has changed in terms of adaptive technology. Most of it continues to be bundled together with Windows, whether it's Windows 7 or Windows 10, and staff have a USB drive to the extent that patrons want a different narrator. The final action is to digitize local archives collection and provide access via the library website and the Digital Commonwealth. Just as sort of an intro to this, there have been a bunch of resources that have been digitized in the past, including a huge treasure trove of old Needham photographs. It's a great way to help share these collections with the public for folks who may not otherwise go into the archives room and delve into the archives. And I know that I've spoken with a lot of people in the town who've seen those posted on the library's Facebook page, or who have gone to those archives and looked up pictures from their own street 60 or 70 years ago and enjoyed that quite a bit. So those house negatives have been returned to the archives after the digitization. The next step was to send in Needham High School yearbooks through 1940, which were submitted but have been backlogged and delayed during the pandemic. Future collections marked for digitization include documents from the Historical Society, things like deeds and other documents from the 17 and 1800s. The Needham Times is also continuing to be digitized, although that's also been delayed during the closure, along with repairs to the buffing machine. Those are provided as a CD and kept in the archives. And that wraps up the written technology portion. If Danielle or Dimitri or Ann have anything to add, or if any trustees have any additions or questions, feel free to do so.
Rob, that's a comprehensive report. Thank you very much. I do want to open it up, although keeping in mind that we're running a little bit late on our time. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you so much, Rob.
Just make sure you send a copy of this report to me, Rob, so I can get it into the minutes. There's
I will.
A lot of detailed information there. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah, of course.
Will do, Jeff. Thanks.
We're going to just go down the list. I don't know if there's anything on marketing and outreach. I would think that we've covered that pretty much with the technology report and the discussion about the website and social media. Is there anything else?
Carol, I can give you an update on the video screens in the library. They were all supposed to have been installed on Monday, but our little kerfuffle of last week meant that we had to do a reset with the company. They are now due to be installed on Thursday the 30th, provided everything stays the same.
They wanted to wait at least 2 weeks.
They needed to wait 2 weeks and have no additional things reported. They're being extremely careful with their personnel as they are located all throughout New England and are servicing a big audience at this time. There will be a brand new screen in the bottom lobby. We're replacing the one upstairs, so everything's the same. And we will be adding a third screen into the children's room that will be located just as you enter the room to your left.
Well, that's so these are the electronic bulletin boards.
They are indeed. And
Great.
they'll be easier to update.
Excellent. That's great. Move along then. Diversity, anything else that we haven't talked about?
No, one quick thing, we are due to start thinking about our diversity book club selections for the following year. So we'll have to rethink how to approach it, since we'll probably be doing some of them online.
Yes.
So the next step is just to book selection.
Okay. Thank you. And one book, I don't know if there's anything on one book.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Let's see
Okay.
where we are when we get it this September, but right now, no.
Okay. Trustee bylaws amendments. I just wanted to pass along the news that I heard from Ann, which is that the town has approved the bylaws amendments that we had approved subject to town approval at our June meeting. And so we now can cancel a meeting without any question if we need to, and particularly on short notice.
And as soon as I can get back to the library, you will all get a new set of bylaws, an
Excellent.
updated set.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Facebook comments, is there anything that we haven't already kind of covered?
No, I think we've covered most of the things. Obviously, we've talked about all the online resources been positively received, curbside delivery and so forth. So it's been all positive.
It's been a great resource, great way to get in touch during this closure. Capital planning, space needs, I think there's nothing really to discuss that we haven't already. And the policies we will get back to at the next meeting. I would also like to put in a request to Ann and Dimitri that you look into pandemic type policies to see what is out there for guidance on that. I think it is out there. And we could probably, don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we'll just adapt, probably can adapt something that's already been thought through pretty carefully. The Art and Exhibits Committee, Kay Hill was elected at the last meeting to take that over. And I have to say that I have not met with Kay to turn over materials, and we still have some minutes from the past meeting that need to be approved at the next committee meeting. Kay, do you have some things that you would like to add nonetheless?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that the one reason that I asked Ann and Dave about whether there were any talk about town buildings reopening, including the library, is that, the art exhibit, there's no art exhibit until people can come into the library. So that sounds like that's not happening anytime in the near future. So, just to know that, so as we move forward in terms of the art committee.
Yeah, I suppose there could be some thought, if this goes on a very long time, to making it a virtual art exhibit, just the way we have broadcast photos of the art that is on exhibit in real life at the library, so to speak. But for now, I think that that's the right approach. Let's see.
Carol, which doesn't mean you and I probably should get together
Yes.
and talk about the transition.
We just have a little more time to do that, that's all. Yeah.
Danielle, did you?
I just wanted to add, whenever you guys do get together for the art committee, I actually have the ability to post the agenda and the minutes on the website. So if you guys can get that to me, I can post it on the town website, and we can be all official and get them up there.
Oh, okay. We have been, the agendas have gone up, I believe. The meetings have been posted for the last two, at least. And so, yes, and I know that Anne has I think Anne has been keeping the approved minutes. I don't know whether
I
they've
do.
been posted. Yeah. Have they been posted on the website or just in your office?
No, just in the book, in your official book.
Okay. All right. So maybe there's, some progress to be made there by putting them on the website. Let's think about that. I'm in favor of public access, so that's great. So McIver, we have to kind of decide where that is going to fall. Anna would normally be in charge of that as the vice chair.
Yeah,
and-
I've been thinking about potentially later in the fall to have one virtual. We've done book clubs. We just kind of, it doesn't seem to be a priority given everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of stewing on it a little bit.
Okay, that's good for now. Yeah, thank you. It's not a matter of scheduling the community room for that virtual one, so it takes a little pressure off of that. Friends of the Library, Jay, is there anything that's happened since the last meeting? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. I heard from the Library Foundation from Joan Smith that she probably wouldn't make it tonight, but there was no real report to be made. Nothing had occurred. So we come to trustee comments. Are there?
So just one thing I wanted to discuss quickly, I was really encouraged by Kate and Dave's reaction to the website issue, and would hope to sort of keep the momentum going on that. One thing that I did think was interesting that Dave brought up was that to the extent that it's not public funds that are being used, there's no procurement process for creating a new website. That's just something to consider going forward, but that might be a way to help give the library some direction in terms of which provider to use for that. And I'm assuming that you wouldn't need procurement for sort of ongoing maintenance and operating costs. So that might be a way to help get more control of that process and avoid going through all of the loopholes and the time-consuming
It depends
process.
on where the money comes from.
And can I add, and Jeff, don't take this part down, but many of our neighbors have gotten the funding from their friends or foundation, and that, circumvents the whole process, the procurement process. So yeah, I read it as part of, I think Dave might have been sort of subliminally saying that, like, if you go through town money, there's so many parameters. If you don't, though, that lifts some, and that's something that can be discussion about over the next few months that we talk about, but certainly something to consider, in terms of if we really want to kick the website up to an independent level in a different way forward,
And I think that that's a good, it might be something that the Friends or the Foundation might get excited about pushing. It's a real, more or less a capital campaign for something for the library. They were very, both those organizations were very pleased to participate in the revamping of the community room technology and the upgrading of the wireless to all of the building a few years ago. So I think they're often eager, and it's something that's kind of a stimulus to interest in those organizations to have, a pitch, a goal like that. So I think we should definitely be thinking about it, and it might allow us to jumpstart the process of getting a new website, before Kingdom Come. Yeah.
I would just like to say that the progress that we saw tonight has a lot to do with how Rob and his presentation, we've discussed this year after year, but what Rob did tonight in terms of just bringing up the websites and showing the difference, which was very obvious, really made a difference. And so his whole presentation and approach really is to be appreciated.
Yeah, I would echo that also. And I'm wondering, at some point along the way, it sounds like you almost have a written presentation that you work from, and it may be useful for us to think at some point about putting it together into some sort of document that makes this case on, effectively like you did, during this meeting.
Specifically as to website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Having been through many of these, excuse me.
Tom, go ahead.
Okay, I totally agree. Having gone through many of these ones, many dealing with the website issue, your presentation of the whole thing was superb, and it couldn't have been better, as I think. And I don't want to get a swelled head, but it was very, very good, Rob. Very good.
And hopefully we can strike while
if I need legal thing, I might hire you.
Anna?
Yes, I want to echo what my colleagues have said, Rob. I think that it made a difference, the show and tell. Maybe may appear a bit simple, but it's just the visual impact was really compelling. And I want to encourage us all to build on this momentum now that we've caught their attention, to follow up with data points. We cannot change what we cannot measure. So make the comparisons with Wellesley. Make what else do we need to do? Follow up with Rogers. It's been a month. And so on, so that we have the living document and see the progress. And then next we can say in another month or so, hey, this is what we've come up with. This is what they can do. This is what they cannot do, so that we can keep moving it forward. Because it seems like we have to build our case, right? Like with anything else.
I'd be happy to kind of spearhead that if we wanted to. I mean, we wouldn't form a committee, a formal committee for that, but I'd be happy, Dimitri and Ann, to work with you on next steps.
Sure,
Good,
absolutely.
yeah, excellent. Yeah, well, look forward to hearing more, at the next meeting then about that. I understand, Anna, you will be away the next meeting. So we will, perhaps you could just give me whatever you would like relayed on topics that you normally report on for that meeting. But that said, I look forward to seeing you all in a month. I believe it's, well, it's the second Tuesday of the month of August, and 7 o'clock, same place. And could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
Second.
Who was that?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, good.
Aye.
We won't do by
Aye.
head. Thank you, and good night.
Good night,
Good
Jay
night.
and Jeff, can I ask you to hang on?
Take care, everyone.